Avoiding work. A U.S. Chamber of Commerce survey out this week found nearly 2 million fewer Americans are participating in the job force today than during the pre-pandemic February of 2020. Our next guest believes fewer 2023 high school graduates are seeking employment as the next step in their lives. In a recent American Spectator article, Young Voices commentator Kate Farmer writes that more and more Gen Zers are deliberately choosing not to work. That's making mental health matters worse. Kate is also a student at Washington University in St. Louis. She comes to us from Washington, D.C. today. Hi, Kate. So first, tell us, why do you believe many Gen Zers are deliberately choosing not to work?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons. Looking at the employment data, our employment numbers are just getting back to pre-pandemic levels, but not so much for Gen Z, who, for a lot of Gen Z who's just come of age, they've never worked a steady job before. And so increasing employment data is showing that this crawl back to the workforce is not coming as much out of Gen Z as it is with other generations. And I think there's a little bit of a worry there coming out of Gen Z, because Gen Z has very much a mental health forward culture. And this mental health forward culture, it sometimes warns that work can be a threat to mental health. And a lot of my article centers around how work actually has a lot of great mental health benefits and life benefits that go beyond a paycheck that Gen Z should tap into.
Well, I want to talk about that some more in a minute, but how can they support themselves and raise families in the long run without the finances to sustain themselves? What are they doing? How do they do it?
Well, I think Gen Z is worried because we're entering a period of really high inflation, and a lot of Gen Z are finding it better to stay at home. But on the flip side, Gen Z is avoiding a regular stream of income instead of some of the financial self-sufficiency that they need to really get off of their feet or get onto their feet and to get into the real world. And there's less of a focus on starting immediately into employment. There's a greater focus on taking time to figure it out, especially in a period of high inflation where it's expensive to move out of your parents' house.
In your estimation, then, how does long-term unemployment then affect feelings of hopelessness, low self-esteem, those type of things?
So work has a series of social, psychological, and character benefits. It's really mixed into our human evolution as social creatures and as creatures who have worked and built organizations and built societies. It's psychologically good for us to get up in the morning and have something built into our day to do. And the act of going to a workplace and completing tasks, it not just fosters self-sufficiency, but it leads to character growth. It's an outlet for social organization and social relationships. And the pandemic really taught us that we have a lot of these needs that are filled by work or daily occupation in whatever form it comes to, and that idleness is really the enemy of these character developments and these traits and these needs.
Kate, how do you feel about this? I mean, it seems like the pandemic really messed your generation up.
I think so. I think it's not easy to point to one generation as being the most hurt by the pandemic. I mean, Gen Z fared pretty well in terms of life expectancy and health risks, but also Gen Z had those critical years of their lives or our lives really compromised. And we've been called, back before we were really called Gen Z, we were sometimes called iGen, like little I, and Gen, like an iPhone or an iPod. And I almost think that's more accurate because we've grown up immersed in social media and tech developments, and we've grown up largely in this digital sphere that isn't really engaged with the outside world enough. And I think the pandemic really drove us indoors and onto screens more. And I think that's hurting our mental health outcomes, it's hurting our life outcomes, and it's pushing us away from regular in-person things like work.
Okay, so as a young adult then, what do you recommend Gen Zers do to motivate themselves to get jobs, become productive members of American society?
I think Gen Z has two things they should really keep in mind. I think Gen Z is good at valuing work-life balance and recognizing that, toxic corporate cultures and work before life or family or relationships, that's not a good thing and that's not healthy. But on the flip side, I think Gen Z could focus more on how work has a lot of really important mental health benefits, and work is important to fostering a full, well-rounded life and to developing one's character. And so I think Gen Z should recognize the ability of regular positive work to have an impact on their life and to seek out a diversity of job options and find what is best for them mentally and what's best for them and their life and their values. But not to sit idle and to also not be afraid of trying some out.
Okay, and we here at the Christian Broadcasting Network, of course, believe that faith plays a big part in overcoming that hopelessness. So, Kate Farmer, thank you so much. Young Voices commentator, student at Washington University in St. Louis. What are you studying?
Sort of pre-law stuff, but I'm really interested in writing and student policy, and mental health policy is really what I'm interested in right now.
Okay, well, thanks for setting us straight today. We appreciate it. I'd like to talk to you again sometime.
Thank you so much. It was an honor.